I am reminded of the importance of trying to understand that not everyone communicates the same and not to judge a book by its cover when I think of this story that happened to my family. One time, I was having a gathering with my 4 kids, my husband, and a couple of their friends. We had a cookout and played some games. To give you a little background, my youngest daughter was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder without speech impairment. When it was time for her to participate in the games, she shared she was nervous. If we were feeling the same way, we would probably just say something to the group, but my daughter communicates differently. She became more hyper and started to talk in different voices, while hiding her face and playing with her fingers. She would not say exactly what was on her mind, even though I knew something was wrong. When I asked her a few different things and reassured her that everything would be okay and prompted her in a couple different ways to handle it herself, she did. She didn't start to feel comfortable until I helped her through the process. I know my daughter and the way she tries to communicate, but if you don't know what those traits or responses mean, that can really cause added stress and tension as well as confusion. The central idea of this is individuals on autism spectrum disorder communicate in different ways. My main points in my speech, I will explain reasons why verbal communication with someone with ASD is confusing and some nonverbal cues people with ASD may use. I will explain some reasons why a person with autism spectrum disorder verbal communication can be confusing. One reason why verbal communication can be confusing is because of struggles with executive functioning. What that means communicated with, even then, they may seem fine till something triggers them. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services National Institute of Health, the what, who, and how effects are separations of how each individual is according to the scale. The what is the different ranges and scale from high to low functioning. The who in the scale is the different and very wide ranges of people. Different races and ages can be affected, and it can all range from severe to minor scales. This is more common to affect a male sex versus the female sex from what I have studied. How it affects individuals with ASD depends on the individual. Many are to themselves or seem selfish, so it makes it hard for them to interact or communicate with people fully. Even though not all are affected the same, they may have a barrier or they may not to prevent other people from communicating on different levels. I will explain some ways a person with autism spectrum disorder communicates non-verbally. The use of limited eye contact due trying to limit stimulation is something individuals may use because they get overwhelmed and don't process things the same. People with ASD struggle to read nonverbal cues such as regulators, which can make it challenging to have conversations based on social expressions or expectations. One way someone with ASD struggles with nonverbal communication is through use of eye contact. Typically, we expect people in the U.S. to look at us in the eyes when we are talking. This can be a struggle with someone who has ASD because they are intimidated or overwhelmed. A second way someone with ASD struggles with nonverbal communication is limited understanding of regulators in conversations. Some don't understand certain gestures or may take facial expressions the wrong way. This may lead to overreaction or miscommunication. This can be taught through explanation and steps so that they can learn to understand the gestures and the verbal communications correctly so that they don't take them in the wrong way or get uncomfortable. Trying to understand a person with autism spectrum disorder speak to you or another may be confusing. The stress someone with ASD feels can sometimes lead them to sound louder or hyper. A person may feel extremely excited, and this may make them react and sound angry or frustrated to you, screaming, but to them, they're feeling excitement, and that is how they know how to express their feeling. This can lead to frustration for those communicating with someone who has ASD. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, there is low scale and high scale of autism disorder and can be frustrating to understand if you do not know them. Lower functioning persons with ASD tend to react in a slower way or need more explanation or help understanding something. The persons on a higher functioning scale may get it but may need prompts just less. To help with this, narratives are things that they may use in autism. They do not always know how to explain things, so stories are a good way of explaining what's going on through their minds. A second way, verbal communication can be misunderstood. Verbal communication can sometimes be confusing because people with ASD tend to communicate often about areas of preferences. So they may seem to obsess about certain topics, likely because of an interest in which leads to an intense need to focus and learn about the topic. Limited attention to social cues can lead a person with ASD to talk too long about that beloved topic. My daughter has a trigger. When she's told something, she fixates that until it happens. Someone with autism can seem like another person in another room till you start trying to communicate with them. They do not show signs they have communication differences till they are communicated with. In a lot of ways, they may seem divergent, setting themselves apart from the way other people may show things or react to things that are said or done. In this speech, I explained how individuals diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder communicate verbally and nonverbally, and how we can understand them better. Now that you know a little more, you probably have a better understanding of why my daughter reacted that way during the cookout and why I needed to help her the way I did. It makes sense that when one don't know another, they can be very easily misunderstood or simple reasons. This is why I feel it is important not to judge a book by its cover.